Alright, hey guys. This tutorial is going to be for exercise 2B, so it's the second part of the exercise you just completed, and it's the 3D interpretation or the 3D relief construction of that 11 by 17 photo montage. So you're going to be interpreting this three-dimensionally. Again, the 11 by 17 is meant to serve as a site base at about an 1/8 inch scale, and from that you're to extend above and below, and also dealing with the ground plane as an integrated component to design. But here this exercise is really about developing the workflow that'll better serve you in other classes, and in particular the studio component. The primary tools that we're going to be using for this are Illustrator and the file you just created. This is the example of the photo montage for the first part of this exercise, and AutoCAD. So AutoCAD, I had mentioned to make sure to have that downloaded and installed so you can start to use that. And we're going to move some of this information from some or all from Illustrator to AutoCAD, and the agenda here is to incorporate the laser cutter as another design tool, as opposed to making models by hand or drawing by hand. We're going to start to fold in another tool, in this case a digital fabrication tool of the laser cutter. And so this tutorial is really about setting up the files from the Illustrator poster, having that move through AutoCAD into a usable file that you can take to the technical shop and have it cut on the laser cutter. Okay, so I have all the information. This is just raw. This is just the photo montage that I had before. And what I want to be able to do is to take some of this information. I might use it for cutting. I might use it for etching. I'll be able to work with that once I get into AutoCAD. But I need to get some vector line work. Right now this is a rastered image. It's all image pixels, right? But I need clean lines, lines that AutoCAD is going to understand as a single line, and either cut or etch or what have you, depending on how I want to approach the laser cutting. So one of the first steps is going to be to use a few tools here, and I'm going to start with the textures, and I'm just going to go through the workflow for that. So I'm going to turn everything else off, or maybe I'll bring in the text as well. I want to show you how to do that. But you'll be using this for all of the images. So the image fragment, in addition to the textures and your line work and the text, all of those are going to come through, and the steps will be similar. The steps are a little bit different between a raster image, something like this, and text that is in Illustrator. Okay, so those will be the primary components I'll be working with. Right. Okay, so one of the tools that we'll be using right away, I'm going to create a new layer, and this is I'm just going to call this layer vectors. Double click on it. So then I know that all of that's the line work that I'm going to want to take and export. Okay, so I'm on my textures layer. I'm going to have my selection tool, and I have the texture selected. Remember, these are all together. These two areas are together from Photoshop. Okay, so the exercise brief references, it's the first step, live trace, and that's the tool, what it used to be called, and so that's a bit of an error. It's actually called image trace in the newer versions of Illustrator. So if I go into Object, now I have the texture selected, Object, down to Image Trace, and basically what it's going to do, it's going to move through this image and try to discern some pattern or texture of vectors that are relative to that image. So I'll select Make, and it's going to be a bit intensive in terms of processing. So just giving you a warning. I'm going to say OK. So now it's moving through, it's crunching the numbers, and now it's finding vectors that are related to this. There used to be a program before called Streamline that would do this, and now it's just incorporated into Illustrator. And I can make some changes to this. Right now this is obviously all black and this is pretty heavy, so I can go here and there are some different options. I can select different options here in terms of different shades of gray that I'll look for, different qualities of the image. You can see it's getting sort of intensive in terms of the processing, so you have to be careful. One thing that I want to do too in terms of view is I just want to see the outlines. So that's a lot of lines you can see there. That's probably too much. As you export this into AutoCAD, sometimes there can be some processing issues, so you have to be careful. Maybe I'll try 16 colors. See if that kind of reduces some of them. Just really looking for a hint of these textures and materials to bring over and have it somehow influence how I'm moving through design. It's starting to add to ideas for design. Maybe that's still a little bit too much. Sketched art. That's okay. It's a little bit sparse, but there's nothing down here, so I'm getting close. Silhouettes. Okay, that's less. Black and white logo. I still need a bit more than that. Low fidelity photo. So this is giving me more and less information depending on the setting. Maybe we'll try that. Again, I was having some difficulty with some of this moving into AutoCAD because I think of the processing power, but we'll give this a go. Maybe just try line art. Oh, a little too sparse there. That's nothing. Shades of gray was. So this is a trial and error. I'm just seeing, trying to also just avoid some problems down the line. Let's see, so that seems a little bit much. Try 6 colors. Okay, we'll go with that. That looks decent. Okay, so then I have 6 colors, the outlines, so these are all vectors now. This is going to turn into Illustrator artwork as opposed to the rastered image. And in order to enter that or complete the command, I'll hit expand. And so now it's a combination of those, however many colors, I think 6 colors, and the vectors, and it's also relative to the fill and the stroke color. So right now there's a fill color that's varied. I'm going to actually put that to nothing, and I'm going to go to the stroke, and I'm just going to give it black. Okay, and it should automatically be grouped. So now you can see I have all this line work, and basically what that is, Alt key and the mouse wheel here. Now it's just line work. Now I can do something similar to the text, although the command is a little bit different. So right now this is editable text. If I double click on it with my selection tool, I'm able to still modify that text, but I want to turn it into just vector line work here. So I'm going to select it, and then I can go into type. And this is a similar command to the image trace, but this is specifically for text. It's called create outline. So it's going to do the same thing. It just created outlines for this. And so if I go here to my fill and say there's nothing in terms of fill, just a stroke, now I just have the outline work here, and actually it's all vector work. So it's no longer editable text. Now it's just Illustrator artwork. And again, I can do the same for this other text as well. Maybe we'll just work with that for now. Bring in this other line work. Maybe we'll start from this now. You could go through this a few times. I mean, the reason why I'm holding off on these lines is that I know in AutoCAD when I select some of this, I want to be able to select a whole region, and I need to change some of its properties so that it is working with the template file for the laser cutter. So I'll probably hold off on the lines and do that in a separate sequence. Right now, concentrate on this texture and this. So line work, overlay, I can turn that off. I'm going to turn everything off that I'm not going to be using right now, including that body text. Oh, I must have had this on the wrong layer. Make sure it's on the right layer, and I can turn it off. And then I want to make sure that I have everything selected here, and I want to put it on my vectors layer. To make sure that this is really clean, so all of this should be on the vectors layer. I could go ahead and delete some of these, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to export this and see how it happens, or better yet, I'm going to save as. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to say save as, and I had an example here ready. So example 1A vectors, I'm going to call it vectors 1, just in case I would go through it again for the other line work. Say save. Okay. Alright, so now this is a separate file. So now I could lock this, turn it off, I can unlock everything else. And for the sake of this, I just want to erase everything else I'm not going to use, because I'm going to export this file. Locked. I'm selecting this and hitting my delete key. So now I can also go into here and delete these layers. I can go here, delete these layers, and it's a separate file from the photo montage, so that's all okay. And I can turn that back on. And I must not have changed my textures. Let's see, there they are. I knew that something was funky with that. So it's on the gray layer, that's textures here. Okay, I want to make sure that that's on the vectors. It's locked. Okay, now that's saved. On that layer, I can unlock everything else. I'm going to lock that just to make sure. And select everything, delete. Now when I turn, well, delete these layers. Okay. Alright, so now that's what I want. Hit my V, get to my direct select tool. There. And I can double click the hand, zoom right in. Okay, so this is what I want. And then I can go ahead and save this. So it's just this information that's on the file. Again, I can go through the same workflow, and I want everyone to go through that same workflow for the lines, so you need to be able to do that for the lines that you brought in. So you do the image trace for that. And I'll go into File, Export. I want to export it as a DWG. You can export it as a series of different kinds of files here, but a DWG is what I really want. This is all my working folder, so I'll say okay, okay. Alright. And I'm just going to go ahead and close Illustrator. Now we're going to move into AutoCAD, and there's just a few tools that we'll be using in AutoCAD. So the first thing to do would be to go ahead and open up the file you just created in AutoCAD. So I'll just double click on that, continue. Okay, so here we go. So what I'm going to do now is a couple things that you want to be able to have here. They're going to be important, a couple tools. How to select, it's similar to other programs, I guess, but it's just a single click here and I can drag a window. If I drag to the right, it's everything that is within the window. You can see if I drag to the left, it's this dotted line. So that means whenever anything intersects that window, it'll select it, right? So it doesn't have to be in the window. So that's sort of like anything that is within those lines or intersects those lines is going to be selected. So I'll drag to the right, make sure I have everything included there, and it's on my vectors layer. And I want to type in properties, because I want to change some of the properties to these lines. So just start typing in properties, and you can see it pops up in this window, so I will select that. And there's this, I just usually keep this docked on the left-hand side because it'll pop up. So everything's selected, and I want to make sure that everything relative here is set to by layer. So AutoCAD uses layers. The layers have certain attributes, or objects can have certain attributes, but you can set it so that any object that is on a particular layer has the characteristics or attributes of that layer. And right now this isn't that. So it's on vectors layer, and I'm going to go ahead and just put that to 0 layer because that's a common layer for AutoCAD files. The line type is by layer, so that's good. Line type scale, that should be fine. Let's see here. I want this by layer. One thing that's not working right now, and I have to apologize, this is all one block, that's why it's not really showing up correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and select this window, and I'm going to start typing in explode. This is basically a block right now, and I want to break it up into little pieces. So now they're all little pieces here, and I can group these, so I can just drag again, select everything, and start typing in group. Fairly intuitive in terms of how you want to do things. And I can always ungroup it later, but now I can should be able to grab this. And you can see now these settings are a little bit different. So it's set to this funky color. I want it to be by layer. Right now it's back on vectors, so I can go to 0. Line type scale. I think I'll just leave that for now. Line weight, I want this also to be by layer because that's really important for the laser cutters. Transparency by layer, and that should be good. Okay, so once I just move off of that window, and again, if you have, I'll just hit escape to get rid of that selection. I'm using my scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So if I select an object and I move over to this properties, it's automatically going to give me the properties of it. So that's why it comes in handy. Okay, so now the other file I'm going to open up is going to be this template file. This is in the OneDrive. And navigate to it quickly. Small. So it's in our OneDrive folder. All right. Sign in. Okay, so 243. And then there are CAA Tech Shop support files. In there is the laser cutter template file. So this is the file that's basically the same as the one I'm going to open up. I renamed it just so I know it's mine. So it's specific to what I'm doing. X3 should be X2B really. Okay. So a couple things that you may want to do. I'm going to just type in L for line, so hit L, enter. You can also use this icon there. And I want to basically create an 11 by 17 overall rectangle. Or actually 18 by 32, which I believe is the size for the laser cutter bed. So you have to be able to place this within that overall sheet. Now I just don't want to start this anywhere. I want to make sure that I am relative to the origin in terms of X, Y, Z. So instead of just clicking this, the start of the line, first point, I'm going to type in 0, 0 and hit enter. So now that's 0, 0, X, Y, 0, 0, and I can move directly up. And I have the ortho set on. Oh, that window is gone. But if you hit your F8 function key, it'll give you that. So then I can move this up, and I can just type in 18, should default to inches. I can move over now to the right here, type in 32, enter. It should be defaulting to inches. Go down, 18. And then I can close it here, and this is an object snap that is automatically on. Okay. The other thing I can do with this, I just want to select this whole overall thing and just type in join. That's going to join all these lines, so it's a particular rectangle. Okay, so I know this is the field that I'm going to be working with in terms of my cutting. Now, I want to be able to have this on the right layers, and in this template file, Jay has all these layers set up, and so it's perimeter, final, cut, let's see, raster engraving, light, interior cuts, vector engraving, deeper cuts, and vector engraving, light cuts. This is just an outline. I actually don't want to cut this. I just want it for reference. So I'm actually going to put it on 0, and I believe that should be okay with the laser cutter. I won't try to cut that. If not, that's an easy change that could happen down the line. The layer that I'll want to be on, I'll just say raster engraving light. I'm sorry, vector engraving light cuts. You can pick one of these. So this is vector line work, and that's basically what we're working with. And I want to have the etching on that layer. Okay, so then I can go back to my previous document with all of these, and I'm just going to make my selection window, and I'm going to hit Control-C for copy, and then I'm going to paste it into the template. Okay, and so I can hit Control-V, just like most programs, and it's holding this lower left-hand corner, so I could position it here. Again, this positioning might be relative to what Jay will want you to do, so it's an easy move at least, but we'll start with 0, 0 here. Okay, now this is all individual line work, so that's good. And now what we're able to do, I'm just going to go ahead and save this right now. We're going to change the layer to have different kinds of cuts. So this, for example, right now this is all on layer 0, and you see here in the layers dialog, it's going to, if you select, just click on an object, it's going to tell you what layer it's on. Escape to deselect. So I'm going to select all of this. Again, just dragging the window, anything that's inside of the window. I can go over here to my properties, and then I can just change its layer. Right now it's 0. I can click this, and I can change it to light cuts, for example. Okay, that's good, and maybe this one I want it to be deep cuts. So I'll go over here to properties, layer from 0, select down, engraving, deeper cuts. And this, let's also have that as deeper cuts. Layer, deeper cuts. Okay, and I'm going to save that. So now I'm actually able to go here, and I could turn off some of these layers now, because I want to make sure that I want a perimeter cut that's 11 by 17. So I know that's about here and there. Now there's a few ways to do this. And the reason why we're able to, I don't have to deal with scaling or anything with this, is that we're just dealing with inches, straight to inches, to inches, let's say. And so it should come in 1-to-1 scale, so you shouldn't have to scale it up and down. It's a little bit different if you're working on a design project, like for a model. Obviously you'd have to scale all this down to the appropriate scale. So 1-to-1 is what you work in for typical, like a plan in AutoCAD or Rhino. You'd work 1-to-1 full scale. But then once you create a model, of course, you don't build it 1-to-1 scale, you shrink it down, and so then you would scale it down and then bring it in, and then you could start to work with it accordingly. So there's a few ways to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this light bulb off. That's because that's my current layer. So I want to change my current layer. I can go to this little icon here, this little ball on the layers, and say, okay, I want to change my layer. Maybe let's go to layer 0, and that way I can turn off these other layers. Lighter cuts, deeper cuts. Okay. Now I could keep this on, and I'm going to try. This is what I was having difficulty with before. Well, AutoCAD was crashing on me, but we'll see if we can get somewhere. I'm going to create a line. Again, my object snap here is just going to highlight that corner at the end point, so I can then go up, and I want to go up 11 inches. I'm going to go over. I'm just holding this polar tracking is on, which is this tool, these tools down here. You can explore what some of these are. There's the ortho mode that tells you if you're going to be direct horizontal or vertical. You can toggle that on or off. Again, your F8 key will do that for you as well. And then there are others, the ortho object snaps, tracking. I usually keep that on. That's pretty handy, and you just have to work with it to see, how it works there. So there are some other options there for you. 2D object snap, I have that toggled on. That's the endpoint, midpoint, that sort of thing. Okay, so I have this tracking on, so automatically it's going to find 0 degrees, and I can just type in 1717, hit enter, 17 inches. I can come down here, 11 inches down, good, and then I want to go 17 inches back here, okay, good, and then hit, enter. Okay, so now I have these lines, and I could, again, select them. I can just keep selecting things here, and I'm just going to type in join. So now that's basically a rectangle. And if these lines, if I wanted to keep these lines here, I could do that. I may want to trim some of those up, so I might explode it and maybe take, I don't want cuts over cuts. One of the things that we'll have to do with this as well, I'm just hitting my delete key to remove some of these extras. Delete, 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 and I still have my rectangle. I'll zoom in on this one. Now notice I'm dragging to the right. I want to be careful here. I don't want to select too much. Not to the left, because if I did that, then it would actually, anything that was within that window would be selected. Okay, so I'm going to say that's okay. If I wanted to extend this, I think that's fine. And maybe these are going to be cuts. This is something that you would perhaps do with your line work, because you're going to go through this process for your line work as well. So I'm going to select all this. I'm going to type in join just to make sure that those are continuous lines and not little fragments. This, I want to make sure this is a perimeter cut, right? That's the 11 by 17 base. So I'll go over here to properties, to layer. Right now it's 0. And I want to go to, scroll down to, where is my vector cutting, final perimeter cut. So that's the perimeter. You want to do that last, and you want to be able to cut all the pieces in between within that field first. So then I can select these. In this case, I'll be able to use that cross window. So now those are selected. I can go back here, change the layer from 0, and let's say these are cuts, interior cuts. Okay, so now I have everything set, and remember I turned off some layers before using this light bulb. If I hit the light bulb that's on, it'll turn those layers back on. And the final command that I want to execute, and I'm just going to select everything now, is a command called overkill. You see it just pops up in that window there. What's that's going to do is that you don't want the laser cutter to be cutting the same line over and over and over and over again. You want it to be able to just cut once, right? When it does that, it starts to, I think, not do so great things to the machine, but also you just kind of get this laser cutter just burning in one particular area if there are a bunch of lines that are right over one another. What this command will do is make sure that there's only one line in that space, so no lines will be on top of other lines. So I'll type in overkill, and I'm just going to go with the defaults. Hit OK, and nothing was overlapping, so we were good there because we erased some of these lines that were happening before. You could tweak some of this. You can see this looks like it's just a little bit off here. And so what I could do is just move that. So I can type in move, select that area, and if you want to not select certain objects, I can just type in R within this command and hit my right click as enter in AutoCAD, right click. I can remove objects. It's doing that for some. This is the case where some of these objects are over one another, so you want to be careful with that. So I can add or remove objects to this selection. So I'm going to type in move again. Type in move, and then I'll move here. And this is where AutoCAD can get a little fidgety. It looks like I have snaps on. Didn't want that. Anyway, I'll just move this down a little bit. And I'll do the same over here. I'm just making sure that these lines aren't overlapping with one another. You can be a little bit more precise with that. Okay. So we should be good to go. These aren't one, this will be an engraving or etching, so we should be okay there. And I'm just using my scroll wheel. Here's a case where these are overlapping, so I could just nudge it up a little bit just to make sure I don't have any conflicts. I can just type in M as a shortcut for move. You can see that there, and right click for enter. You can also hit your space bar for enter. I don't know why it's giving me this snap business here. I have to figure that out. It's one of the settings down here is a snap object, or just a line grid snap. So that got turned on somehow. Anyway, so we should be good to go with this file. It's all on the layers that we want. We don't have lines that are overlapping with one another, so that should be okay. And I would just save this. And then this is a file that you could take on a thumb drive to the technical shop and then move forward with the laser cutting. There may be a few things that would be required in that shop. Perhaps this origin would need to be changed, but I think 00 is just kind of good for keeping everything organized that way. I know they do want it to be a landscape orientation, so that's the way the laser cutter is kind of set up. And then move forward. Of course, there will be little details along the way. I realize I went through this very quickly in terms of using AutoCAD. I'm just holding down my scroll key, by the way, to pan. That's a quick panning tool. So a lot of it is just kind of jumping in. The main agenda is to bring the vector work in, make sure the properties are right in terms of the layers for different etching or cutting, and also to make sure we don't have lines that are over lines that would otherwise have the laser cutter kind of cut over itself. So that will conclude this part of the tutorial. And I realize this is a little bit more complex than some of the other tutorials, so Perhaps I'll do some follow-ups to kind of get a little bit deeper into, I think in this case, probably more on the interface of AutoCAD. But for the most part right now, the main tools that you'll be needing, make sure you have properties. And again, you can just type in properties, and that window will start to pop up with the different commands. You can just click this and it'll execute that command. Using some of the layers, this window just pops away. Turning off layers, turning on layers, freezing layers, unfreezing layers. You can isolate here with layers, so if I just wanted to isolate one layer, I can select the yellow and then right click for enter, and that's going to give me only what's on that layer. So it's going to isolate that layer and turn all the other layers off. So then I can just work with this. So if I wanted to get in and like delete these perimeter lines, which could be a problem, then I could do that pretty quickly. If I want to unisolate, it's the one down below here. Unisolate turns everything else back on. You can lock layers, unlock layers. I could change my current layer. So if I wanted this yellow to be the current layer, I can just select that. Now I'm in vector engraving. I can right click to reinstitute the last command typically, and I can change a layer there. Now I'm on vector engraving. It's one's light, one's dark, that's why. Or for the perimeter cut, you can see that change there. So I'm just changing the layers. You can also match layers. Another tool that's pretty handy that I use a lot, not just for this, but for just doing working on projects, is the match layer, match properties command. So I can say, okay, well this object, I want other objects to be to have these same properties, same layer, same all settings that has. So it's asking me for a source object. See the little floating window there? So that'll be my source object, and select destination objects, or so I'll hit enter. Oops, sorry. That's my source object. Now it's asking me what that I want to change, and so I can pick certain parts of these to be on the deeper cut, and that's the layer that we're working on, or I could just select whole regions here with my different windows. And so I can say, okay, well some of this is going to be deep cut, some of this is going to be light cut. And so just using the match properties, I was able to select a source object and then select other objects that are going to share those properties. So you can play around with those. Again, a lot of this is just learning the interface. Again, down below, you probably have more that pops up here. I keep this pretty clean. But here are all the different options in terms of different drafting modes, ortho mode, polar tracking I usually keep on. So there's a series of others. And we can keep working on this. Again, I just wanted to feather in just this workflow to prep the laser files here. And we'll start to be integrating other, not only AutoCAD, but also eventually getting into Rhino and moving through similar workflows. So that's it for now. And until the next one, thanks.